Mount Hermon stands 9,232 feet above sea level on the border of modern Syria and Lebanon, with disputed territory extending into Israel's occupied Golan Heights. It is snow-capped year-round. It is visible from enormous distances in every direction across the ancient Near East. Three river systems, the Jordan, the Litani, and the Orontes, draw their headwaters from its slopes. Every ancient culture that encountered it assigned it sacred significance. The Book of Enoch names it specifically. In chapter 6, verse 6 of the authenticated text, preserved in Aramaic at Qumran in fragments 4Q201 and 4Q202, held at the Israel Antiquities Authority in Jerusalem, Mount Hermon is identified as the specific location where 200 beings called the Watchers descended and swore their oath. This is not a vague or symbolic geographical reference. George Nicholsburg of the University of Iowa, whose 2001 Hermeneia commentary on 1st Enoch is the field's definitive scholarly reference, has written and published work that the choice of Mount Hermon as the descent point is not arbitrary, that the mountain's significance in the broader ancient Near Eastern religious landscape suggests it was understood as a liminal location, a threshold, by every culture that knew it. This observation is documented in his published scholarship. James Vanderkam of the University of Notre Dame has written and published work that the Watcher descent narrative preserves memory of a specific event at a specific location with a degree of geographic precision that allegory does not typically require. Both observations, Nicholsburg's on the mountain's liminal significance and Vanderkam's on the geographic precision, are real and documented in peer-reviewed Enoch scholarship. What the authenticated text does not contain, in any form verifiable through peer-reviewed scholarship, is the pre-chapter 6 section described in the source material, headed the words concerning the place of meeting and the cloth between the two orders. No such heading appears in any scholarly edition of the Ethiopian Ge'ez text. No correspondence from Milik in 1974 referencing this section has been documented in published Enoch scholarship. No deliberate lacuna created by Charles in his 1906 translation at this specific location has been documented by scholars comparing his edition against the Ge'ez source. The Hebrew University access denial accounts for survey work on Mount Hermon have not been confirmed through any published academic or institutional record. These specific claims should be held as unverified, consistent with the pattern of fabricated manuscript claims that has appeared throughout this series. What this documentary will cover honestly is what the authenticated Enochic texts genuinely say about Mount Hermon and the Watcher descent, what ancient Near Eastern religious history documents about the mountain's cross-cultural sacred significance, and what the theoretical physics content in the source material actually looks like when stated accurately. Before we go further, subscribe now if this kind of historical and archaeological exploration is what you are here for. Every week this channel examines ancient texts, scholarly debates, and interpretive questions at the edges of mainstream scholarship. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Mount Hermon in the authenticated Enochic text. Chapter 6 of the Book of the Watchers is one of the most studied passages in Enoch scholarship. In the authenticated Aramaic fragments from Qumran, 4Q201 and 4Q202, and in the complete Ethiopian Ge'ez version, the text describes 200 watchers convening on the summit of Mount Hermon and swearing a collective oath before their descent. The Hebrew name, Hermon, does carry the root haram, meaning set apart, forbidden, or consecrated for a specific purpose. This etymological connection is real and is discussed in mainstream scholarship on the Watcher narrative. Whether the name reflects the mountain's pre-existing sacred status in the ancient Near East or was applied because of the Enochic tradition is a question scholars have discussed in published work. Nicholsburg's extended analysis of the Watcher narrative in his 2001 commentary addresses the choice of Mount Hermon directly. He notes that the mountain sits at a geographic and cultural intersection of multiple ancient Near Eastern traditions, that it was associated with divine presence across Canaanite, Israelite, and broader Semitic religious traditions, and that its identification as the Watcher's descent point connects the narrative to a real geographical anchor rather than a vague symbolic location. His characterization of it as liminal, a threshold in ancient religious understanding, is documented in his published work. The Deuteronomy 3 reference to Bashan as the land of giants is real and documented in biblical scholarship. The region surrounding Mount Hermon was understood in ancient Israelite tradition as a boundary zone between the ordinary human world and something more uncanny. This is a genuine feature of the biblical and broader ancient Near Eastern textual record, discussed in peer-reviewed scholarship on the geography of sacred space in the ancient Near East. The cross-cultural sacred status of Mount Hermon, what is documented. The source material's description of Mount Hermon's cross-cultural sacred significance is largely accurate and worth engaging with on its own terms. The Canaanite temple at Baal Hermon, at the mountain's base, is documented in archaeological and textual records. The association between this location and divine presence in Canaanite religion is real. The broader ancient Near Eastern pattern of high mountains being treated as thresholds between the human and divine realms is extensively documented in the scholarship of ancient religions. John Day of Oxford University and others have written on the cosmic mountain concept in ancient Near Eastern religion in published peer-reviewed work. Mount Hermon's current political status is accurately described in the source material. It does sit in a militarized zone. The Israeli-Syrian ceasefire line runs across its slopes, and portions of the summit host Israeli military installations. Civilian access to the upper mountain is restricted. This is documented publicly and requires no fabricated access denial account to establish. The hydrology, real and accurately described. The source material's description of Mount Hermon's hydrology is accurate. The mountain is the primary headwater source for three significant river systems. The Jordan River flows south through Israel and into the Dead Sea. The Litani River flows through Lebanon, and the Orontes River flows northward through Syria. The convergence of three major river sources at a single elevated point is a genuine and unusual geographic feature of Mount Hermon. Whether this hydrology is encoded in the Enochic text as a marker of the fold's location, as the source material proposes, rests on the unverified pre-Chapter 6 passage. The hydrology is real. Its proposed textual encoding is unverified. Brain cosmology and the Large Hadron Collider, accurately stated. The theoretical physics content in the source material deserves accurate presentation because it describes real scientific ideas that are worth knowing correctly. Brain cosmology, derived from M-theory and string theory, is a real theoretical framework in theoretical physics. It proposes that our observable universe exists on a membrane or brain within a higher dimensional space, and that other brains with their own physical properties may exist adjacent to ours. Ruth Durer of the University of Geneva is a real theoretical cosmologist with published work on brain cosmology and related topics. The source material's characterization of brain cosmology as mathematically consistent with currently observed physical phenomena is accurate. It is a theoretical framework that current observations do not rule out, though it also has not been confirmed by any direct experimental evidence. The graviton search at CERN is a real research program. Gravitons are hypothetical particles that mediate the gravitational force. In extra-dimensional theoretical frameworks, gravitons would be the particles most likely to escape into additional dimensions, producing what particle physicists call missing energy, energy that should be present in a collision but is measured as absent in detectors. The Large Hadron Collider does search for missing energy signatures of this kind. No graviton has been detected. The source material's characterization of this search is accurate in its essentials. Max Tegmark of MIT is a real theoretical cosmologist whose work on the mathematical multiverse and cosmic inflation is among the most cited in theoretical cosmology. His published arguments that inflationary cosmology implies the existence of additional regions or structures beyond the observable universe are real and are found in his published work, including his 2014 book, Our Mathematical Universe, and in peer-reviewed papers. The source material's characterization of his position is broadly accurate. What is not accurate in the source material? The proposed correspondence between these theoretical frameworks and a specific passage in the Enochic text describing a fold at Mount Hermon. Brain cosmology does not predict that the boundary between adjacent brains would be located at a specific mountain on Earth's surface. The missing energy searches at CERN do not specifically describe energy leaking through a geographical fold point. Tegmark's mathematical multiverse does not identify Mount Hermon as a crossing point. These are proposed correspondences built on an unverified ancient text, not findings from within theoretical physics. What the authenticated Enochic framework offers. The authenticated Enochic framework does engage seriously with the question of what the Watchers were and where they came from. The text identifies them as beings from the divine realm, from the highest heavens, who violated their assigned position by descending to earth and taking human wives. The theological framework is one of boundary violation. Beings who belonged in one region of the cosmic order crossed into another where they did not belong. Whether this boundary violation describes a crossing between two adjacent Earths, as the source material proposes, or a descent from a higher realm to a lower one within the Enochic cosmological framework, is an interpretive question. The authenticated text's own cosmological language describes the Watchers as coming from heaven, from the divine realm above, not from an adjacent Earth. The adjacent Earth reading is a proposed reinterpretation of the boundary-crossing language, not a translation of what the text plainly says. Nickelsburg's commentary reads, "The Watcher narrative within the Enochic cosmological framework in which heaven and earth are distinct realms of the same creation rather than separate universes." This is the mainstream scholarly reading of the text. What is established and what is not? What can be independently verified? Mount Hermon is named specifically in Enoch chapter 6x6 as the Watcher's descent and oath location, in authenticated Aramaic fragments at Qumran and in the complete Ge'ez text. Nickelsburg's characterization of the mountain as liminal in its ancient Near Eastern religious context is documented in his published commentary. Vanderkam's observation about the geographic precision of the Watcher narrative is documented in his published work. Mount Hermon does source 3 major river systems. Its current military and political status is publicly documented. Brain cosmology is a real theoretical framework. Graviton searches at CERN are real. Tegmark's multiverse work is real and published. The Hebrew name Hermon carries the root haram, meaning set apart. What has not been independently verified, the pre-chapter 6 Ge'ez passage with the heading, "The Cloth Between the Two Orders," Millick's 1974 correspondence about it, Charles's deliberate lacuna at this location, the Hebrew University access denial accounts, the 7 markers of the fold. None appear in verifiable scholarly or institutional records. What this documentary does not endorse, the claim that a crossing point between 2 adjacent Earths is located at Mount Hermon, the claim that brain cosmology confirms this crossing point, the claim that missing energy at CERN corresponds to energy bleeding through the fold. Mount Hermon's role in the authenticated Book of Enoch is genuine and genuinely significant. It is the only specifically named geographical location in the Watcher descent narrative, a narrative whose geographic precision, as Vanderkam has documented, goes beyond what allegorical writing typically requires. Nickelsburg's characterization of the mountain as liminal, understood as a threshold by every ancient culture that knew it, is a mainstream scholarly observation worth engaging with seriously. The question of why this specific mountain, at this specific hydrological and geographical convergence, was understood across multiple unrelated ancient cultures as a crossing point between the human world and something beyond it, is a genuinely interesting historical and religious question that scholarship continues to engage with. Brain cosmology's proposal that adjacent physical structures to our universe may exist, and the Large Hadron Collider's search for evidence of extra dimensions through missing energy signatures represent genuinely fascinating areas of theoretical physics that are worth understanding accurately. Whether any of these things point toward each other in the way the source material proposes, that is a question honest engagement with both the science and the text cannot currently support. This documentary examines historical, textual, and scientific topics for educational purposes only. The pre-chapter 6 passage, the cloth between the two orders, and associated manuscript claims in the source material have not been confirmed in any authenticated Enoch manuscript through peer-reviewed scholarship. The real scientific findings referenced, brain cosmology, LHC missing energy searches, Tegmark's multiverse work, are accurately described and publicly available. No connection between these findings and any ancient text is implied by their inclusion. Viewers are encouraged to consult peer-reviewed Enoch scholarship and their own trusted religious and academic sources.